July 20th, Eggs and Issues Breakfast featured a discussion on the issue of the homeless in Volusia County. Speakers, including Daytona Beach City Commissioner Pam Woods and Executive Director at Halifax Urban Ministries Troy Ray, brought the issues to the table.
That is absolutely
Sponsor Daryl Greeley of UCF starts the discussion off.
The topic today is is a great topic to talk about, because on our campus we see individuals day in and day out that find themselves in one of two, or have found themselves in one of two positions. One, we have folks who have indeed experienced a homeless situation in their lives, who are on their up and up, trying to go ahead and better themselves and pull themselves up from that particular situation, coming to campus, trying to go ahead and pursue bachelor's degrees and move forward in that way. Unfortunately, we see the other direction as well. We see individuals who have started their education with us and find themselves, especially in these times that we've had over the last few years, we find themselves having to quit and finding themselves in homeless situations and moving, unfortunately, in that direction. And so we see that dynamic very much here locally. But Ginny LaRue is actually an employee of our campus now, after a period of about 6 years. But she actually started her time in education being a homeless mother, taking care of her children, living out of her van, going from hotels to restaurants, to anything that she could do to go ahead and get food for her family. But she always kept, as part of her plan of educating herself and moving forward in some way, shape, or form. And her story is very, very inspirational. You can pull it up on YouTube. Just type in UCF Ginny, J-I-N-N-Y. It's only about 2 minutes or so. But it shows that this issue is so prevalent in our community. And we're seeing it right there. Now, we're very excited because she is one of our advisors, speaking with prospective students, people who want to go to college, sharing her story, sharing her hope, which is really what we like to think higher education is hope for a better future. And she does a great job at it. So, so here are the words that we're going to talk about today. Take them to heart, and that's about it. So thanks for being here. So again, UCF Ginny.
Executive Director Troy Ray explains the role Halifax Urban Ministries plays for the homeless in our community.
Halifax Urban Ministries is an organization established to prevent homelessness and to intervene on behalf of homeless people. Those of you in business locally understand that there is, I think, universally accepted, a homeless issue, perhaps even a homeless problem. I think probably most of you understand that the homeless people that you see and encounter are a veneer of 10 or less % of the entire homeless population. They are the visible homeless, the ones who are spoken of as interrupting commerce, as making families feel less safe when they're around them. What is unfortunate is that this 10% veneer is, in many cases, what becomes the understood whole. And that is not the case. That is absolutely not the case. What we do for homeless people is, first of all, we give sustaining services. Then we also give stabilizing services, and then we offer shelter. Sustaining services means we help them remain alive. They are in a process of survival. If you and I were dropped into the Pacific Northwest, we would either die or learn how to eat bugs, catch animals, find water. For people who have been homeless for a very long time, they have also learned a set of skills. They have learned how to deceive. They have learned how to figure out how to get what it is that they need to live. I have come to view it from a professional point of view as a means of survival that exists as opposed to dying or throwing themselves across the railroad tracks. I understand it. It doesn't change the impact on society, but it does help to remedy it if you understand where it's coming from. So in our sustaining services, we provide food every day. We provide a hot meal in the middle of the day. It is a meat, 2 vegetables, a fruit, a salad, buttered bread, and some of you have come to see our meal. Buttered bread, a dessert, and something to drink. We are able to do this for about 140,000 meals a year, and we're able to do this for less than 15 cents a plate. And that is because we have a lot of community support for this activity. The majority of our staff base is volunteer. We have over 400 volunteers monthly, and that makes so many more things possible. Besides the sustaining service of food, we also provide showers and laundry and clothing. So every day we have 2 facilities where homeless men and women can come, get cleaned up, get some fresh clothes, and get some hygiene products if they need them. Another sustaining service that we have is a medical clinic. In partnership with Halifax Medical Center, we have been operating a medical clinic for 6 years now. In this medical clinic, our homeless guests can receive the basics of that would be offered to any other person going to the doctor. They can be treated for illnesses, and twice a month at our clinic we have 2 physicians who come and attend. We have an RN every day. We see over 300 patients a month. These patients, before this clinic was established, would only have been able to resort to going to the emergency department at Halifax Hospital. I am not aware, Bob Williams is the local expert, but I am not aware of any hospital visit in the emergency department that costs less than $1,000. This is a savings, or a cost avoidance, I should say, a cost avoidance to the community of over $3 million a year. So these people, these guests of ours are being treated for hypertension, diabetes, wound care, sutures removal, sutures needed, and this is an essential sustaining service. The stabilizing services that we have, among the most necessary, in cooperation with Stewart Marchman Act and with Haven Recovery Center, we have a mental health clinic. Almost 1/3 of all homeless people deal with behavioral and mental health issues. And so if you're going to stabilize a homeless person to the ability to hold a job, to save money, to pay bills, to be able to function as you and I find, unremarkable, then this kind of activity is absolutely necessary. So far we have been working with 120 guests, and we're making a difference in this piece of the homeless population. Finally, there is the shelter piece. The only shelter for families of the kind that we have is the Stars Family Shelter in Daytona Beach. In the Stars Family Shelter, we're able to accommodate as many as 25 families, 94 persons at a time. Presently, we have 70 people. We have 1 room available at the moment. In the Star Family Shelter, they receive a 6-month window of time where we assist them in gaining their feet, helping them find work, helping them get whatever documents they need to get in order to get work, get the kids in school, get the kids in daycare, and all of this happens. Last year, we assisted 254 homeless families into becoming independent again. Now, what may be the most important fact of homelessness? The homeless house has a big front door, and mostly families with children are coming through that door. The homeless house has a very narrow back door. It almost always takes shelter to remedy a homeless situation. Now, we are getting it done without shelter in some cases. They're happening 1s and 2s at a time, and I see people in the room who can agree in their own work that is the case. The thing that will close the front door is homeless prevention. Homeless prevention is a leverage of about $1 to $100 in terms of results. And here's what I mean. Where am I on time?
You have 2 minutes left.
Good. Perfect. Federal Policy Institute's study of 2008 reported that it takes $51,000 for a family of 5 to have everything they need. That means education, good transportation, child care, and health insurance. The poverty level for a family of 5 is $26,000. 13.8% of the families in Volusia County live below that level. Okay, that means they don't have health care. It means they probably don't have adequate transportation, and they probably don't have adequate child care. It means that really the only variable in their lives from month to month is the rent payment and what they buy at the grocery store. So you can see, if you can muscle a lot of food into the families' lives that are affected by this, you can keep them ultimately from becoming homeless. If we can give them enough food, they don't have to spend any rent money on food. They don't have to spend any food money on rent. And we can prevent homelessness. Now, our organization is not unique in this respect. We can provide $75 to $100 worth of food for $7. What I mean is I can put together a 40-pound package of food, a balanced diet of non-perishable food with some fresh meat on top, a value of between $75 and $100 in the hands of this family for $7 cost to me. That's homeless prevention. If we can do more of that, then this door into the homeless house gets smaller. That's what I have to share with you, and I hope it's helpful in understanding the homeless issue.
City Commissioner Pam Woods takes a stand on the homeless children in the school system.
I paid attention to the numbers that he mentioned that came through the family shelter this past year. Less than 300 families. And then when we add up the other programs that exist, Family Renewed, Domestic Abuse, Neighborhood Service Center, that exist within the community. And I'm sure I mentioned every single one. We have Kudos on Hook and New Smyrna Beach that serves high school students as well. Very few beds actually exist. And what I'm going to talk to you about are what we see in the school district. And Dr. Williams and the school board has always been very supportive of what we are actually mandated by federal law to do. And every school district in this country has to have someone do what I do every single day. And unfortunately in Volusia County, this past year, we saw more homeless students than we've ever seen before. We hit nearly 2,200, and these are just the children.
I think that's increased to about 4,400, 4,500.
What? No, it's 2,200, yes. And then what we have, you don't include preschool-age children, okay? That does not include their parents or their young adults that are out of school as well. So what we know about are nearly 2,200. 2 years ago, it was less than 2,000. Now remember, this is in addition to the fact that the school enrollment as a whole has gone down, so we haven't trended down in terms of those numbers. Resources are very limited. In a county this size, though, we have 0 shelters for families that live in Osteen, Enterprise, DeBerry, Deltona. So when I get a call from a school over there and I have a family in crisis, and the typical phone call may be on a Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock, they've been evicted, everything's on the street, and what do we do now? And they may have already called United Way, you know, and they've been told there's nothing. So unfortunately, a lot of times, my office is the call of last resort. Well, we can't create what does not exist. And so sometimes the answers I have to give to school personnel is, we don't have anything for that family. There is nothing for that. So unless they're able to find someone to stay with that evening, they're on the street. And sometimes our families are hidden. Our families that are literally in the woods or literally in a tent, they don't tell us because of the fear of outside intervention. So sometimes we don't even know that they've been living in their car or the Walmart parking lot until afterwards. So those are challenges that we face every day in terms of a lack of services. What happens as a result of a lack of resources in the communities that they live? And there are homeless in every single community in the county. Don't think for one moment that they're not. They're in every community. So every city, in my opinion, has a responsibility to serve their residents, their families, their children. And we're not there yet. But what happens the way the system currently exists is they must be uprooted from where they are. So what little bit stability they may have within the school, within their church community, just within their neighborhood, they have to give up and come to the Star Family Shelter, or maybe Family Renewed, or maybe domestic abuse, because they don't have any other choice. So they come here, they have to get settled in school again. So even though the law says try to keep them in the same school, It's almost impossible for us as a school district, and is it in a child's best interest to have an hour bus ride from Daytona Beach to Osteen? No. So they're going to have to change schools. They're going to have to start over again. And a video that I use a lot of times when I'm out speaking with students or doing a longer presentation, it's students that have been interviewed in their own words about how difficult it is to go into a new school setting, and you're living in a shelter, which you don't want other kids to know that you're living in a shelter. And so they have to deal with those things as well as being homeless and losing everything. You go into a shelter with nothing. So when Troy talked about preventing homelessness, that's critical, and there's been a shift for that as well nationally in terms of preventing instead of building more shelters. It's keeping them there, and even some of our county funding this year, limited federal dollars that are coming in for housing stability, we're looking at using it to prevent that first-time homelessness. Because once you're in the hole, it's a whole lot harder to get out than never going into that hole in the first place. So that's where we're all trying to move, is to prevent, and it's cheaper as well. To do that. The challenge, and now I'm going to put on my other hat for a minute as a city commissioner, is when you concentrate services in one community, or just the eastern part of the county, which is what we currently have, you have an impact on those municipalities. In the city of Daytona Beach, which is where the majority of services, are located right now for our families that are homeless, what happens is, in my opinion, you create a culture of poverty, because these families come here and they settle in and they take up roots where they have settled into the shelter or family renew or domestic abuse, and when they transition out, they may stay here, but they're on the lowest rung of the economic ladder within this community, and we need to provide services for them, which we should because they're our residents now. But we don't have the rest of the community helping us to shoulder that burden as well. This summer, for the first time, we weren't able to provide after school or summer services, summer rec program for the STAR children. Typically they've gone to the city's summer program so their parents can work. Family Renew was the same thing. They contacted me about it. We were full. We had 500 families apply to go into our summer programs. We didn't have 300 slots. So again, who pays for that? Well, these families can't afford to pay. So tax dollars go to provide those services, which are very much needed. I'm not saying they're not, but if you read the paper this morning, we have a huge financial challenge with our budget in the city in the coming year. And this is a piece of that as well, is if you have a highly impoverished population in your community, you have to be able to provide those services to them as well, and it impacts your overall budget and what you can deliver to the community as well. So challenges, municipality space, when services are concentrated, is a disservice to those families and those children that are in need. So I guess what I'm saying is that we need to look at it globally. We need to look at it as a county-wide responsibility, and that every one of us has something that we need to be contributing to the families. And prevention is key and critical to doing that. So, that's all.
I'm going to ask Troy and Pam if they would come up and we'll entertain questions. We're going to limit the question to 1 minute and the response to 1 minute unless we hear overwhelming demand that they keep going. And Cheryl's ready. So, question this.
How do y'all feel about Tiger Bay Village?
Do you want to go first on that?
Repeat the question and provide context.
Okay. How do we feel about Tiger Bay Village? You know, I'm in for 4 more years, so I can say whatever I think. So I'm not running for office right now.
Tiger Bay Village is a concept of locating all of the services in one area, in the Tiger Bay area, and eventually becoming both a residential and a service area for homeless services.
So what I would say is, first of all, you've just heard me say for my population that I serve, it absolutely does not work. Okay, I don't believe in a concentration of services for families, and Michael Ark would even tell you that it would not work for families and children. With that, so if you're talking about an adult population, you know, I'm still conflicted. You can make arguments for both.
My view is that to make it work involves a tremendous investment of confidence that, for my organization, seems to be a very large risk. It means concentrating a lot of our resources into that one activity and hoping that it will perform as advertised. And so I'm I have mixed feelings about it.
Question. What fundraising are you doing at home?
What fundraising are we doing at home? We have a variety of things. We have currently a golf tournament coming up on the 11th. It's our 5th annual golf tournament, and those are funds for homeless prevention. And we have a broad base of support in the community, one of which is a sponsorship program for families at the Star Shelter. Thank you.
In the back?
Just curious if you have any idea what economic liability is for a community such as Daytona, and if you were to divide that out through other towns, do you have any idea what the economic value of implementing a plan similar to this in each community would cost?
Well, I think what happens, it depends on what each community, wants to do. And, one of the things that I've talked about is pick a population, within a community. Sometimes communities are very adverse to serving the adult population that Troy deals with, but they're more willing to serve families. A huge challenge for me and other school districts across the country are what we call our high school, our unaccompanied youth. The numbers are not significantly large, the ones we know about. They tend to be very underreported, but they have really a lack of resources to go to. And once they turn 18, they really have a lack. They don't fit well in typical shelters. These are typically not streetwise kids. Emotionally, they function even if they're 18, about 14. And so even when I try to get them in someplace like Neighborhood Center, Star Family Shelter does not serve them, Family Renew does not serve them. They're overwhelmed. I can't even get them to go to like Neighborhood Center for an interview because it's terrifying for them to suddenly be in a street population, whether they're a female or a male. So that is a big, big challenge for us. Kudos Unhooked in New Smyrna Beach, which does serve that population, is a small program. But again, if I've got a kid up here, they have to leave and go to New Smyrna. So we're trying to get some of that here. And that, to me, is a very cost-effective way if you want to serve homeless. Because we know if a student graduates from high school, we know that, the data is there, your risk of living in poverty, of being homeless is reduced. So our goal is get them through high school. They can go to college, they can go to Daytona State or a state school for free. That's part of state statute if we document, their status. So we can remove those barriers, but getting them through, keeping them off the streets is a big deal. But we're working. Farouk Hosseini is working. She has Food Brings Hope in the school district. We're working closely with her, United Way, Halifax Urban Ministries, to try to provide some programs for those students over here on this side of the county. And St. Peter's and DeLand, if any of y'all are from over there, we're working with Father Tom as well to try to get something happening.
Well, the question is not the information that I could have been homeless coming from a ghetto of Chicago, raised by a mother and a grandmother. I could have been homeless. But I had the community there who helped me to understand the importance of education. The concern I have now is that many of our homeless kids are unreported. I use a figure that right now I think our homeless of our children is about 4,200 to 4,500 kids. Now the question is, 20% of that may be unreported because many of the kids do not report being homeless because they are embarrassed. And that really bothers me because our children they are a great asset to us if we educate them. And unfortunately, I don't think individuals, particularly the government, understand the plight that we're in regards to homeless children. The homeless children, the number keeps growing every year. Every year that number goes up. And what bothers me is that many of the homeless kids are not reported. And that really bothers me because they are not getting the services that they could get. But we're gonna keep fighting this battle. I know the time is up, but we're gonna keep fighting this battle because we have to take care of our young people because I'm getting old. And I need assistance in regard to nurses, future doctors, dental people. And if we do not help these kids, where do we get our future doctors and nurses? One of the best programs we got is at Daytona State College. And we got to inform our kids that they can become educated if they go to college and get the particular services that we need for the future. So I just want you all to understand the importance of the homeless kids because the kids do not want to report. They do not want to report, but it's out there, folks. It is really out there, and every year it increases.
Thank you very much. That's a good point. The stigma attached to homelessness.
Right.
Jim.
Pam, you were talking about here that you get an education for free in college if they're homeless. How many kids take advantage of that? Right?
Not a lot. I mean, we try to make sure our schools know about it, and the documentation is through my office. You know, it's not that many because again, the challenge for some of them is their tuition may be free, but it's housing and all the other. I mean, it's so again. That's why the program Kudos Unhooked, what we're trying to do, you know, with Farouk Hosseini, because that piece of that has to also be, you know, how do you navigate? What we learned last year with Kudos Unhooked, we had 4 students that wanted to go to college, and so we did the letters, we got them in, but the piece that we forget sometimes, or that we need to remember is they don't have good decision-making skills. They don't know how to make choices. They've never had to do that in terms of their family didn't teach them that, so they need this whole support system just to even get through that. Or they may not have computers. I mean, it's very complex for these students that come from this level of poverty to even get through that, especially when housing is an issue as well.
Just as a follow-up, are the schools compensated from the state for that, or do they just have to absorb it?
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I don't know how they, I just know it's part of Florida statutes.
I saw the story not too long ago in the paper about
Yeah, you know, with that. And I'll just tell you real quickly, we had a student that after graduation, they came down, I was telling the table, and he had not identified himself as homeless. Mom wasn't even in the state. He went to Daytona State to enroll, couldn't get in. So they came back to me and we had to get documentation so that I could do it and get him in school. 3.5 GPA, bright kid. But he had stayed off the radar as far as the school because he didn't want anybody to know, you know, that he was. Yeah.
Yes, you bet.
As far as the preventative
Yes.
program, do you all work together to send food home with kids to their families?
Yes, we do. We actually do. If you can imagine that, the Food Brings Hope.
Amazing, isn't it, that we actually collaborate. Troy and I talk to each other, okay?
Food Brings Hope, which is a nonprofit that works, and Pam is a part of, that works with, you know, low-income families, school children who need preventive assistance. We partner together. Since we're able to get the food as economically as we can, we provide these food packages for the families that they select. We do that on a monthly basis.
One other thing I want to say to that is resources, as we all know, have become greatly diminished in the last few years. And I am such a huge believer in collaboration. You don't reinvent the wheel. You don't do those things. And other counties, any of you that saw the 60-minute special, you know that Seminole County does provide a lot of direct services to homeless families through their school system. Well, that's not my personal philosophy. My personal philosophy is you work with and collaborate with those agencies that already exist to provide services such as what Troy does. And then you also partner with business people such as Farouk Hosseini and Food Brings Hope so that you can take the little bit of money that you have and stretch it as far as possible. And I talk to his staff at the Star Family Shelter almost every single day. So you have to do those things to make sure that you're delivering the kind of service that you need to deliver to your families.
Question here?
Oh. I just wanted to say, as part of a PTA in an elementary school, we've seen our ability to fundraise go down, and we've seen the kids we've tried to help go up. And so everybody is stretched. It's really a tough thing. The big thing and the big challenge I see I also, not only just my night job as city councilman in Port Orange, one of the things I do is I'm on the advisory board for the Salvation Army. One of the big weaknesses I see in the entire system is we do have quite a number of agencies, including the one I'm associated with, that are very good at what they do. And collaboration, exactly what you talked about, is difficult. Some of it is turf wars, but I think a lot of it is that it's hard to see the forest of the trees when you're fighting your own fires every day, and you've got to try to find some time to work with another agency and this agency. There is a lot of that goes on, but the opportunity to do more of that, it's tremendous. I know I go to a church where we collect food every Sunday for Hum. Those are just small things that people do. But the overall, as far as I think, on a daily operational, good job of collaborating. But when it comes out to being able to go out and advocate, I don't think that there's a unity of all the agencies right now. And it's a weakness that we've all got to work to overcome together.
Thanks. Let me speak to that. If there's a weakness, a lot of the weakness is our failure to adequately brag on ourselves.
Sure.
Just as one organization, Halifax Urban Ministries is collaborating on a daily basis with the school system, with Stuart Marchman Act, with Haven Recovery Center, on a weekly basis with Daytona Outreach Center, and 150 area churches. But other efforts like Food Brings Hope is a collaboration that involves 4 or 5 area agencies. The thing that Pam keeps referring to for Husseini is called the Hope Project. The Hope Project is a collaboration of agencies as well as local business. There's probably, I think, 3 or 4 people in this room that are involved in that. And beyond all that, there is the Food Summit, which you probably haven't heard about. But the Food Summit is an activity centered around, I should say, not so much centered around, but piloted by Community Foundation of East Central Florida, and involves 8 or 10 different social service agencies, all with the idea of bringing food to low-income families. So, a lot of collaboration is happening, it's just not always visible.
Yeah, as a member of Food Brings Hope for the last 5 years, I don't think that Farouk Hosseini and Pam Woods gets the credit, and I'm sorry, Ron, but we should do a better job of that. But if I've learned one lesson, and I'm listening to everybody, and I think Troy said it, and that's what you need to take with you when you leave here, is homelessness is about food. And if you don't have food, you have homelessness. Why do I say that? If you lost your job and you can't pay your rent and you can't pay your electric bill, you are still going to scrape and buy food for your children and feed them. So it all begins with the food process. Do you pay your rent and let your kids starve? And the second thing I learned from Food Brings Hope, New York City had a major problem, huge. Who would want to tackle that problem? And they seem to be solving that problem. And they seem to be going away from the old-fashioned mode of putting people up in these ratty hotels that charge exorbitant prices. But what they did is they brought the kids to the schools where they're at. But know this, when a kid grows up in the homeless shelters, that's a lesson that they continue on. So that generation now feels that they can go into the next level of homelessness, and that's where they go. That's a mindset. These kids don't know any better. So the 2 lessons are, food brings hope, and we've got to get them out, and we as a community got to do better.
Thank you, Bob. Do you want to add anything to that wonderful statement?
Yeah. And Sandy Bishop, I see in the back too, she's part of what we're doing with the Hope Project as well.
Don't tell me about that.
All right, shouldn't say that out loud, sorry.
This is quick.
We have time for one more question.
This is quick for Troy. First of all, fabulous, helpful, wonderful presentations. You're talking about being able to provide food at basically 10 cents on the dollar, and obviously the question is, how can you do that?
Collaboration with Second Harvest, with Boar's Head, with U.S. Food Service, Walmart, most of the local grocery stores, and 150 different churches bringing in food.
And when you think about it, and it's $7 for a week, $365 for a year of food for a family. That's amazing.